on my own. And Minister, I stand here again before you as the last speaker. I make no apologies for asking you and the government to raise your voice, to use our neutrality in the most positive way possible. Last Saturday, I woke to the news headlines in relation to Biden didn't think it was the conditions were right to talk peace. We have to raise our voice to talk for peace in relation to the war in the Ukraine and all the other wars that are causing misery, death, destruction and starvation. I woke to the news that Biden said the conditions weren't right on the same day that the same news bulletin told us the United States has unveiled its latest high-tech strategic bomber. It's something you might listen to just for that alone, Minister, a B-21 bomber, which is capable of carrying a nuclear payload and can be flown without a crew on board. This is for the new generation, and they're missing the point that with nuclear bombs, there is no new generation. This is on the same day that Biden said the conditions weren't right for peace. Do you know how much they're going to spend on that plane? 750 million to fly it without a pilot, to have dual capacity for nuclear and regular bombs for the new generation. And they're going to buy 100 of those. Now take that on top of the comments from Joseph Borrell, who semi-apologised for telling us everything outside of Europe was a jungle. But in fact, he didn't apologise at all and added to the analogy that everything outside was lawless. That's the Europe that we have become. And I'm a proud European with intimate family connections with Europe. And I talk today in the context of an agenda that's coming up next week about security, external relations in our southern neighbourhood. And I put it in context. 25,313 people dead or missing between 2014 and 22 in the Mediterranean. In addition, 950 people are recorded as dead or missing since 2004. The total number of people dead or missing in Europe and the Mediterranean is 26,218 people, all data from the Missing Migrants Project. And I mention that by not saying one death is worse than another death, but it's all part of Fortress Europe and building up what Borrell wants, a garden inside of walls, physically and metaphorically speaking, and a jungle outside. That's what the European project has become. And we have twisted language on its head. And we've made our concept of neutrality a principle that we hold dear, that has served us well and allowed us to get membership of the Security Council, albeit on a temporary basis, which has allowed us to be a voice that's trusted in the word. And we've stretched that where elasticity has no meaning anymore. We have joined up a Ukraine Defence Contact Group in NATO headquarters where the meetings have taken place, and Ireland has participated in 6 meetings. Time precludes me from going through the bullet points in relation to that. The European Union Military Assistant Mission also has been stretched beyond capacity. And still we talk about neutrality meaning something, except when various spokespeople, very senior people tell us, well, really it's a policy decision whether or not to lose our neutrality or the triple lock. So I stand here today and I'll use my voice for as long as I can to say stop doing this in our name. The overwhelming feedback from all the polls is that people want us to use our voice as a neutral country for peace in the world, not to add to more militaristic states. And that's exactly what has happened. The European project has been transformed from a peace project into a military project, a huge industrial military complex. I was sickened to read the amount of money that we are spending through Europe, the European project, on military. Some of the budgets, and there's a whole list of them, Minister, have increased by over 1,000-fold, while we have something like 800 million on the verge of starvation in the world, and that's the G7 rich countries telling us that. So when I look at this agenda today and I look at Ukraine, Russia, energy, economy, security and defence, southern neighbourhood and external relations, I want to know where is our independent voice in this to point out, as friends should do to friends, listen, you're on the wrong track. That's what friends do. They talk honestly and openly to their friends to say, please change this. This is causing death and destruction. The shake of your head, Minister, I don't know what it means, but I'm out of time, so you're lucky. Thank you, Chair.
And Minister, to conclude, you have 10 minutes.
Just to counteract this misinformation about this alleged militarisation of the EU that first came from Deputy Mary Lou McDonald last week. The last Corla is now repeating it. I don't know whether what the Taoiseach said could be repeated, because the Taoiseach made this point and stated the facts.
Okay. As an independent TD, that's my.
As the Taoiseach said less than an hour and a half ago, spending on defence and security is a national competence. And decisions in relation to that are in the first instance for each member state, for Ireland to decide. We decide on our military spending. Dáil Éireann decides on our military spending. There's nobody in Brussels. There's nobody in NATO. There's nobody out there telling us what to do with our military forces. We decide that in this Dáil. And these conspiracy theories that there's some kind of militarisation happening in the European Union need to be put an end to. It is our decision in this Dáil.